as needed. So for those who I don't know, my name is Lisa Helps, and I'm the executive lead for project origination for BC Builds. And I have with me today also from our group, Alistair Butcher, who's here. And he's going to be putting useful links in the chat and staying up to date with any information that's requested. And also joining me and joining us is Stephen Collier from the City of Penticton, who will be sharing a bit more information with all of you about the opportunity. So the agenda for today is as follows. I'm going to walk through the property opportunity notice, in particular, the evaluation criteria. This is now, I think, the 10th site that we've had up through BC Builds. We've received quite a few proposals for a lot of the other sites, and really want to share with all of you how we're going to grade and score the proposals that you're submitting. So I'll walk through that, and then I'm going to hand it over to Stephen, and he's going to share a little bit more information about the opportunity, about downtown Penticton, about where this site is, site context. And then the majority of the time is really meant for all of you. This is an opportunity to ask us questions, anything you need to know about the site, about BC Builds, about what BCR to use, about what interest rate to use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully I'll cover a lot of that off. But the objective today is for us to give you enough information for you to put some really good proposals together for this opportunity. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and walk through the property opportunity notice. I'll just encourage anyone who's joining the meeting. There are a lot of people here, which is great. We're very happy about that. But to please mute, because with a lot of people on the call, there's some background noise if not everyone's muted. So here's the property opportunity notice. Please have a look at it if you haven't. Again, I'm not going to walk through in detail, just to highlight submission deadline December 5th. The Penticton's offering a 99-year lease to the successful proponent, and they are looking for a developer, builder, and housing owner and operator, which should be a nonprofit, co-op, or First Nation entity. And that's all laid out here. I'm not going to go through the site context. You can see it here, and Stephen can touch in a little bit more detail, but we really, really encourage you to obviously read through this, but in particular, look at all of the links that have been provided by Penticton. So look at their OCP, the zoning bylaw, the Northern Gateway Area Plan. There's a lot of detail in here that's going to help you with your proposals. And you may write to us after today and ask us a question. And if it's in any of these plans, we're just going to simply direct you back to the available information. I will talk about how we handle questions that aren't readily available as part of the next steps at the end of this session. So stand by for that. So the property opportunity notice has all of the details in here, what Penticton's looking for. Penticton has done a fantastic job with the appendices that they've provided, and actually we're starting to use this property opportunity notice that they've put forward as a model for others. So kudos to them. You've got the engineering information, background property report, and everything about the title. All right, skipping down to what I want to cover with all of you, the mandatory requirements and the ranked criteria. So how we are evaluating this. The mandatory requirements are those that must be met. So we assume that everyone who's going to be submitting is in good standing with the corporate registry, that you have demonstrated property management experience, demonstrated development experience, that the project meets the equity requirements. And what that means in this instance is that the per unit grant required is no more than $225,000. If it does, it's not a BC Builds project. If it goes over that, it's not a BC Builds project and doesn't fit. And also that that the project meets the target household incomes. And all of these things that I've just talked about are laid out right here above. And so these are qualifying criteria. We're not evaluating these. Anyone who meets these criteria then becomes eligible to have their proposal assessed. Now, the ranked criteria is where we are scoring. And because BC Builds is a market rental supply program, not an affordability program, not a housing affordability program, although we do want some below market units, and I'll talk about that in a moment. You'll notice that the scoring criteria is very heavily weighted towards the ability to deliver projects, not the ability to deepen affordability. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So 20 points out of 100, highest weight given to the financial viability and sustainability of a proposal. So we're looking here for solid proposals that can be self-sustaining without an ongoing operating subsidy. Of course, charging rents available or affordable to the household income targets for BC Builds. When you are putting your pro forma together, we've provided a link to a capital and operating budget spreadsheet, which you're welcome to use. Obviously, you can use your own format if you like as well. We know that some of you may have good relationships with CMHC and be planning to bring them into a project. That's fine, you can note that. But when you're putting your pro forma together, we would ask, just so we're comparing apples to apples, that you use a 35-year amortization and the interest rates for construction financing and takeout financing that are available through BC Builds. And those are all on our website for your information. So highest number of points out of 100 to the financial viability and sustainability of the proposal. This next part is really important, amount of per unit grant required. So while the program maximum is $225,000, anything above that is not a fit for BC Builds. The point here is to have award points for basically the lower the grant amount per unit, the higher the point score that you can receive for this. So the per unit grant is really meant to deliver for nonprofit projects like this, 20% of units to 20% below market. And so that's how you calculate the grant amount. What is the grant amount required based on your capital costs, your operating costs, your debt service, your coverage, your operating costs, I said. What is the amount of grant needed to get 20% of units to 20% below market? So you want to really sharpen your pencils here and think creatively about this. Again, we don't want grant amounts of $200,000 per unit that are going to achieve 40% affordability are going to score very low, because again, that's not the purpose of the program. Having said that, the next line item here is percentage of units at 20% below market. So while our baseline for BC Builds is 20% of units at 20% below market, and again, for clarity, when we mean below market, we actually mean below the appraised market rental for the area. We're not using CMHC's median market income. You should probably have a sense of appraised market rents in the area and use that as your baseline market, and then 20% of units to 20% below. So that is our baseline. 20% of units at 20% below market is the BC Builds baseline. And so if you bring in a project that is at that baseline, it doesn't score very well out of 15. What we're looking for is creative proposals, innovative financing approaches, speed to construction, any measures that you can to use your I guess, development prowess to deliver more units at either 20% below market or more units at a little bit below that. So for example, you may be able to put together a pro forma based on your construction costs, your knowledge of the Penticton market, et cetera, to get 25% of units at 20% below market, or 30% of units at 20% below market. So that's how this is being evaluated here. If you can do 20% of units at 25% below market, that's also good. But the key here is not to deepen affordability. It's to achieve see how you can best essentially the BC Builds program. And again, there's a lot of information that I'm sharing and happy to answer your questions to clarify. Target household incomes is pretty straightforward. The baseline is laid out here in the property opportunity notice, but we're looking for proposals that can deliver as low as possible on the household income scale. So obviously more points, the lower the target household incomes you can target, the lower the points. But again, don't propose to spend $225,000 per unit to hit really low household incomes. And this is something that we've really seen in the first few sets of proposals that came forward. And again, a tip for all of you, these are all worth 15. So balance accordingly when you're putting your proposals together. And then the final 15 points here is for speed to market. So we are looking for proposals that can deliver housing quickly. Maybe that's through offsite construction. Maybe that's through replicable design. You've just built another project and you're going to use the same design, etc. So points there. Even though this is a project that is going to be awarded to a nonprofit co-op or First Nation entity, we are looking for any additional equity contributions that the partner might be able to bring. Maybe you've got some philanthropists lined up, or maybe you have some other creative means of bringing capital into the project. So again, it's not many points awarded for this, but there will be some. Unit mix, we're trying to get some family-sized units. So again, there'll be points awarded for. Sorry, Allie, can you mute whoever just came into the meeting? Thank you. Again, this is just worth 5, but we are going to award some points if you can get a mix of units that does have some 2, 3, and 4 bedroom, additional accessibility benefits and additional sustainability benefits. And again, these are only worth 5. So when you're putting your proposals together, these are important, but these up here are more important. And in terms of accessibility and sustainability, for clarity, BC buildings just need to be built to the BC Building Code, not to the BC Housing Design Guidelines. So that was a lot of information, I realize. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to hand it over to Stephen, who's going to give you even more information. And then after that, we are here to answer your questions. So Stephen, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa, and thanks everybody for coming today on the call. I'm just going to pull up, I have a couple slides I'll run through for the group here. Perfect. All right, yeah, thanks everybody. My name is Stephen Collier. I'm the Housing and Policy Initiatives Manager with the City of Penticton, and I'm excited to join the call today and share more information about Penticton and this opportunity site we have. For those who maybe aren't familiar or are less familiar, Penticton is a regional hub in the South Okanagan, and we have just under 40,000 residents, right around 38,000 according to the last census. We're blessed in terms of our geography, being one of the only cities in the world with lakes on either end and mountains on either sides. Because of this, the development area in the city is pretty small, and we're already seeing a lot of multifamily projects going forward to meet our housing needs. We're permitting right now about 85% of our new homes as multifamily types, and only 15% of new homes as single detached. The local economy here is pretty stable and diverse, with major industries in agriculture. We're a famous wine region, manufacturing, industry, healthcare. We have a major regional hospital here, and of course, tourism is a big industry here as well. Penticton is projected to continue growing at a steady rate, with up to 20,000 more residents expected by 2046. That'll take our population to nearly 60,000 in about 20 years. So it's an exciting time to develop and build and move to Penticton. There's a lot happening here. At the City of Penticton, we have a well-resourced and dedicated development services team to help projects from concept through to completion. We process hundreds of millions of dollars in construction each year and have lots of experience with large-scale developments. In recent years, we processed interesting projects, including a 6-story mass timber hotel wing, 3, 12, and 13-story apartment towers, and many more apartment buildings within the 4 to 6-story range, which are pretty popular here. Provincially, Penticton has the most efficient development application timelines, where we deal in months and not years. Our average development permit is processed in about 2 to 3 months. Our development services team is small but mighty, and that allows us to collaborate well when projects come in. We work hard to collectively share feedback and work together to solve any surprises that come up along the way. And we're open-minded. We have progressive policies in place, and we're open to discussing new ideas and unique proposals. So we welcome you to bring your ideas for this site. This development site for BC Builds is located in what we call the North Gateway neighborhood. This is an area of Penticton that's well connected with lots of amenities and lots of redevelopment potential. A block away from the Eckert site is over $300 million in municipally funded facilities and municipally owned facilities, including the 5,000-seat South Okanagan Event Center Arena, our community center, the convention center, theater, and more. This area features large underdeveloped properties today that have strong development potential. A short walk away is the Okanagan Lake waterfront with a multi-use path along the water and many amazing restaurants and patios nearby. Only a 10 to 15 minute walk away from this site is the downtown core, and this area is highly desirable and really poised for a lot of investment activity in the next couple of years. Look at the future vision for the North Gateway. In 2022, the city completed the North Gateway Area Plan, which is linked in the Property Opportunity Notice. And through that process, we worked with the community to lay out the future vision for this neighborhood. That plan calls for over 2,000 more homes in the North Gateway in higher density forms, like the 6-story apartment shown here. That one's actually currently under construction just further down Eckert Avenue from this current site. Of the 2,000 more homes that are projected, up to 200 are needed for workforce housing to support the businesses in the area and the community as a whole. More hotel rooms are anticipated to meet the tourism needs, and we've seen a new hotel open in the last year with over
Oh, Stephen, you went on hold for some reason.
Sorry about that. I got booted to hold for some reason. I'll pull this up
Okay.
again.
Okay, perfect. You're doing great.
Hopefully that only happens one time. We'll see. Perfect. Okay, back to it. Yeah, we have a new hotel that opened with 100 rooms just recently near this site, and another major hotel expansion just beside that that's about to get started.
This is very weird. I've never seen this happen before.
I saw it, and I swear I'm not pressing anything, so I'm not sure what's happening.
Neither am I. Okay, we'll just keep going.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, the area plan projects a lot more commercial space as well as the area grows, and the city is planning major investments to our assets in the area as well. We're planning for new arenas and upgrades to other city-owned facilities in the coming years, and we're also planning for infrastructure improvements to make the streets a bit nicer, to support walking, biking, and providing more green space, especially as more residents move into this area. With that context in mind, this site has lots of potential to help us realize the vision of the North Gateway. The city sees the BC Builds program as a perfect fit to help provide the needed workforce housing in this neighborhood. And the site itself is well located. This property is right along the main highway through the city. It's near transit. It's a short walk from a shopping plaza, Okanagan Lake, and the downtown. Development on this site will be a catalyst for further redevelopment projected in this neighborhood over the next couple decades. I'll note a couple elements from the property opportunity notice before turning this back to the BC Builds team. This site is located along a controlled access highway. So we've heard from the ministry that all vehicle access will need to be from the public lane behind the property rather than from either street, the fronting street or the side street. The ministry mandated building setbacks do apply to this property. Our development engineering team prepared a technical memo for this site and outlined some infrastructure improvements that will be needed at the building permit stage, including new service connections and some frontage improvements. So if you haven't already, definitely recommend that you check out that technical memo. And I'll also note that Penticton is working hard on making progress on providing more childcare spaces in the city. And we see an opportunity for daycare potentially with this project to support working families. While that's not a requirement for submissions, it's definitely an opportunity and something that we would support as a partnership coming forward on this site. So that's a wrap on my presentation. Sorry for the glitches there in and out, but really appreciate your attention there and happy to share about this opportunity site in Penticton. My contact information is on the screen there, and I'm happy to continue the conversation after today if you have any other questions that come up in the coming days or weeks ahead as you consider and put together a proposal for the site. So with that, I'll turn it back to the BC Build team. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Stephen. And just one note, actually, and we didn't talk about this in advance, so there's no way he would know that. Please do not contact Stephen if you have any questions about this opportunity. We need it to be a fair and transparent process. And what we do, and I'll go over this again at the end, but any questions that you have on this site, even if they're detailed questions for the city of Penticton, send them to info@bcbuildshomes.ca. We will then answer the question if we can, send it to Stephen if we can't, and we publish each question and each answer as an update to the property opportunity notice. That way, even if one person is asking the question, everybody who's putting together a proposal has access to the same information. So Stephen will save you the trouble. We may bother you once in a while for questions, but we'll field those for you.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We do have a couple of Q&As in the chat, or sorry, Q&As in the Q&A section. So we'll start with those. And then really welcome all of you to put on your cameras, put on your microphones, and just ask us a question right into the meeting. Don't have to put on your camera if you don't want, but really the next 40 minutes is your time to get information from us. So I'll start in the Q&A. Lisa, could you please clarify your comment about accessibility and sustainability needing to be built to the BC Building Code, not BC Housing Guidelines? So for those of you who haven't worked with BC Housing before, for all other programs except for BC Builds, BC Housing has its own set of guidelines and design standards. And the reason that those are in place is because for all other programs other than BC Builds, BC Housing provides an ongoing operating subsidy and so has a vested interest in the buildings themselves. BC Builds does not provide an ongoing operating subsidy, and all we require is that the buildings be built to the BC Building Code. So that includes accessibility, seismic, sustainability, et cetera. So please just use the BC Building Code when you're putting your proposals together. Next question is, will a timeline for these be discussed? So the proposal call closes December the 5th. Because of the holiday period that follows soon after that, we'll probably need 6 to 8 weeks to evaluate the proposals. Once we've selected, and the we being ourselves, so the BC Builds team and the City of Penticton co-evaluate the proposals. After the evaluation period, we would obviously select a successful proponent. Once that successful proponent is selected, we send out what we call a conditional land contribution letter that's signed by BC Builds, the City of Penticton, the developer, builder, and the owner operator. And then from that period, I mean, this is a relatively straightforward site. The conditional land contribution letter would set out a date within, kind of a max of 12 months to get the site under construction. And you heard Stephen talk about Penticton's turnaround times for development permit, building permit. The financing and funding comes through BC Builds. We also have expedited approvals process. So that's the expectation with respect to timeline. And then I also have another question about the Skaha Lake Road Assembly. Can I ask that here? I'm not, Stephen, is that related to this project?
Yeah, I can comment on that one. There is a separate BC Housing project going forward on Skaha Lake Road, but while this discussion is under the umbrella of BC Housing, it's a different division under BC Housing that's leading that project. So this team that's on the call today won't have any updates or information on that separate project that's already ongoing and going through preliminary design and getting ready for application.
Great, thank you, Stephen. Okay, other questions that people would like to ask? I know it's a lot to sit there and take in all this information and then all of a sudden have to be the ones on the spot to ask questions, but we really encourage you to air your questions today in order to help you get proposals in. So Tara, I'll go to you and then I'll go back to Lori. Go ahead. And Tara, if you're muted, or if you're speaking, you're muted. We can't hear you. There we go.
Oh, sorry, I did not put up my hand, but I do have a question. Do local nonprofits get priority?
There's no scoring to I guess reward local nonprofits. But presumably you'll know your market pretty well. But no, there's no scoring to incentivize local nonprofits.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Lori, go ahead. You are muted. Allie, can you try and unmute Lori? Lori, I'm presuming you've tried to unmute yourself. Okay.
Sorry, I'm
Maybe
working on it, but it's not giving me the option to unmute.
okay. Maybe just use the Q&A then. That worked last time. Right. Floor is open for questions. This is your time to ask anything you need of us to put together your proposals for this site. Yeah, Dion, go ahead.
Thanks very much for the information. I guess just in looking through some of the zoning information and the package that was put together, it looks as though there are some caps under the current zoning on sort of hardscape surface, hard surface, and I'm just wondering whether parking is the city sort of open to a parking variance at this site, depending on the proposal that comes forward.
Yeah, I could speak to that. Any of those design considerations and how it aligns with zoning, we're definitely open to seeing how it fits on the site, recognizing there might be things like setbacks or lot coverage that may need to be looked at depending on the design that's submitted. So I think we're open to that conversation, and we tend to build the approval for that into the same process as approval for the development permit where possible. So it may be a separate application, but we work to stack those and have that go through the process as speedy as possible. We put the zoning in place to really support the 6-story size, and recognizing that maybe depending on the scale of the development and the layout of the site, there might need to be some elements of that zoning that maybe get flexed or eased in some way depending on the design. So it's not a hard rule that it must meet the zoning. I think we'll look at the design that's submitted and some justification for that, and definitely consider that as part of our application and approval process.
Thanks.
Okay, Lori, you've unmuted, so I'll go to you, and then I'm going to go to Irvin next.
I found it. I don't use Teams, so I'm sorry about that. I am not a builder, developer, or nonprofit. Somehow I got a notice about this. I'm really glad that I'm hearing what's happening in my town. I'm just a citizen really concerned about sustainability, and I'm wondering why in the climate that we are in, we wouldn't be requiring any of our new buildings to be built to higher standards of climate, reducing emissions, zero carbon, brise soleil for shading. We see BC Housing buildings go up with no shading on windows. And so why wouldn't we include that in our requirements to be met by a developer in this very difficult area that we are in with high heat, domes, like we've had high heat and situation. If people are living here, they have to be comfortable and safe, and to have a heat pump building or electric or geothermal. Why wouldn't we require our building plans to be to the highest standard for sustainability and emissions reduction?
Yeah, it's a great question. The BC Building Code is the highest standard in Canada. So it is superior to building codes across the country in terms of needing to meet Energy Step Code and other sustainability benefits. And there's a low carbon pollution standard that is also a kind of a step towards adoption. So BC Builds is a rental supply program. We do see, and again, we're looking for building innovation. We do see a lot of the buildings that are coming through the BC Builds program do tend to their tenants and have heat pumps, therefore cooling built into their units. It's a question we ask, but in this proposal call, we are awarding some points for sustainability and accessibility, but the majority of points are to just get rental housing built to the BC Building Code, which again is competitive when you look across the country. Thanks for your question, and it's great to know that you're here to learn about what's happening in your city. Irvin, go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I wanted to clarify that in order to qualify for this, the owner and operator must be a non-profit society, a co-op, or First Nations Development Corporation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. That's just wanted some clarity on that, as this was interest to me. Wanted to learn more about how we can be a part of BC builds in general. So, but yeah, no, thank you. It was insightful.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and one of the things where there are going to be nonprofit owners and operators, they still need a private sector developer builder to partner with them. And so one of the things we wanted to invite in the chat today, and please don't put your contact information, because our thinking is that if there are nonprofits here that are looking at this opportunity but don't know where to find a developer builder partner, or vice versa, if you're a developer builder interested in developing and building this site, but you don't have a nonprofit to operate in the end, just pop into the chat maybe your name and your organization. Don't put your email address there. But what we'll do is take the chat, and this video, as I said, will be posted on our YouTube channel. We're going to take the chat comments, put them into the YouTube comments, and that way, you know, if anyone, well, people will, because they always do, go and watch this, they'll see, hey, there's such and such nonprofit that's interested in this opportunity. They're looking to partner with a developer builder. So if you are either of those parties, a developer builder who wants to put in for this one but doesn't have a nonprofit partner, or vice versa, and you wanted to put your name and an organization in the chat, we want to use this opportunity to connect people together, so that we can again have those full proposals come in.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I see your hand is still up, so.
Oh, sorry. No, but I think I'm not able to type in the chat because I'm not a member. But yeah, I'd love to share the organization I'm from, and if there are any partners who would love to chat, I'd be open to that.
Perfect. Ali, can you see if the chat can be open to everybody? It usually is, but just want to make sure. Okay, thank you. Other questions that people would like answers to during our time together here? Okay, there we go. So Josh has put in Orion Construction Builder looking for a nonprofit operator to partner with. So it does seem that the chat can work for external. Perfect. Okay, good. Very exciting. We're starting to see this populated. So look for partnerships in the chat. But again, really want to encourage folks to ask questions here. I know it can be a bit daunting. You're in a room full of strangers, but want to make sure we use this opportunity to source all the information that you need in order to bring us good proposals at the beginning of December. Okay, if we don't have questions, we will look to wrap up the session. So I want to just make sure, last time, and 2 days ago, we had an info session. As soon as I said last call for questions, a bunch of hands went up. So I'll do that here. Last call for questions. Is there anything that you need to know in order to, from Stephen or I, to put proposals in? Yes, go ahead, Benaz. Oh, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. You seem to be on mute.
Okay.
There you go.
So my question might be stupid, but I want to know regarding the unit types, that which unit types are more likable in terms of like 1 bedroom studio.
Yeah, no, that's not a stupid question at all. We're, well, I mean, Stephen might have an answer from the city of Penticton, and so I'll turn to him in a second, but we're not requesting a certain number of unit types or set of unit types per se. What we're looking for is proposals that conserve a range of different users. However, when I went through the scoring criteria at the beginning, we are, and you'll see this when you read through the property opportunity notice, we are awarding 5 points for buildings that can deliver some 2, 3, and potentially 4 bedroom units while still remaining viable. So that's as much as we want to say about unit type, unless Stephen wants to add anything in.
Yeah, on the city side, nothing mandating certain unit types or mixes. We do have some policies that support a range of unit sizes and types within projects. And we typically see that with similar scale buildings where they'll have, some studio up to 2 or 3 bedroom units. So whatever mix works well for this project, we're open to. And really meets the intent of that policy, which just provides, like Lisa was saying, more housing options for more types of people, families, and households.
Ali just reminded me we did have a question come in advance of the info session, so want to make sure we address that here. The question is, I am a builder developer and I'm interested in submitting a proposal as part of a team with a nonprofit or public housing corporation entity who would own or operate the facility. I would be interested in partnering with BC Housing itself. I understand BC Housing recently partnered with Tannen Developments for BC Builds project in Langley. Will BC Housing own or operate the housing? And then if teaming up with BC Housing itself is not an option, does BC Builds facilitate connections between prospective builders, developers such as myself with other building owner operator entities who are not builders and therefore similarly looking to team up? I actually can't remember who asked that question, but hopefully that person is here today and using the chat to look for partners. So no, BC Housing will not be the owner operator of the building. We are really trying to, through BC Builds, increase the capacity and an asset acquisition of the nonprofit housing sector in the province. And so we will be looking for a nonprofit or co-op or First Nations entity to own and operate the building. All right, I'll do it again. Last call for questions. Is there anything else that you would like to know from us while you're here today? Okay, second last call. Okay, and before I do my final call, in case anyone thinks of anything, I do want to talk about what happens from here. So I gestured towards this earlier in the meeting, but because this is a fair and transparent call for proposals, if you do have any questions, and you will, we know you will, coming out of this info session or sometime, anytime before December the 5th, please send them to info@bcbuildshomes.ca. What we will do is take your question, get an answer to it, and post the question and answer as an update to the property opportunity notice. And you'll see those updates populated in the property opportunity notice after the final page of the notice and before the appendices begin. So that's where you'll see them in the document. Because as of Saturday, we're heading into an election period. We are not going to be able to email everyone who's signed up for this info session to alert you to the fact that the property opportunity notice has been updated. However, on the web page for this project, for this site, every time we do get a question and answer and we update the property opportunity notice, you will see on the Penticton BC Builds page a note that says property opportunity notice updated. It'll say the date of the update and it'll say the page in the property opportunity notice where the update has been placed. So you don't have to go scrolling through a PDF all the time, but do check back to the website on a regular basis so you can keep track of those updates. And it's actually, from our point of view, really interesting. We get some really good questions in, and we know that by answering them for one person, it gives an opportunity for everyone to benefit from the question and answer. So you'll see them there. Yeah, so that's what's next. The proposals are due by 11:45 p.m. on the night of December 5th, although we don't encourage you to wait till the last minute. And we are here in the interim to answer your questions and help support your proposal development. All right, Lindsay, I saw you turn on your camera. I don't know if that means you want to ask a question before we wrap up the meeting here. So invitation to you if you wanted to, and also to anyone else who might have a final question before we wrap up. Nope. Okay. Thanks for saying hello. Final call for questions before we end this info session. Right. One more thing to say. We did notice that some folks joined after the beginning of the session, so you wouldn't have been here when I said that this session has been recorded. We will be posting it both on the BC Builds YouTube channel. Probably more importantly, it will go up on the Penticton page for BC Builds. So if there's anything that we covered off today really quickly, like my run through at the beginning of all the evaluation criteria, you can go back and watch the video to see what you might have missed if you got here late, or to recap if you were here at the beginning. Okay, excellent. Thank you all for coming. We look forward to receiving your proposals and yeah, answering your questions in the meantime. Bye. Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everybody.